Welcome back. We are on episode 12. This time I thought we'd dive deep into a process called the Treasury Auction. Billions and billions of dollars flow through this process, and I thought it would be useful for all of us to learn a little more about it. Before I start, my usual disclaimers. This is education. This is not investment advice. I am not a wealth management advisor. I'm not your tax accountant either. I'm here to educate. You make the decisions. The way we're going to organize our learning on treasury auctions is into four major topics. One is to recap what we talked about at a very high level on treasuries. The second is to review what is a treasury auction, how does it work, and we'll go into great detail on it. The third is to look at pros and cons of wearing the various hats when you participate in a treasury auction. And last but not the least, the exact steps that you can take to participate in an auction. Welcome to YieldNerd, an educational show about how you can acquire and manage yield. You may remember this goes back to episode 4. If you have not watched episode 4, you are not going to follow the rest of this unless you're a seasoned investor who knows quite a bit about treasuries already. So I strongly encourage you to pause right now. Go back and watch the individual pauses, the individual parts of episode 4, and then come back. Now that you have the background on episode 4, what is a treasury? Why does it exist? What are the ways in which we can buy treasuries? You may remember that in episode 4, we pretty much said, well, we can go through a brokerage or go direct, and we were going to look at brokerage. And for a very brief moment, we said, well, you can go look at what are called new issues, or we can look at the secondary market. And we noted that new issues are available at all kinds of maturities. And then we said, well, we're not really going to look at the new issue or the auction process. We're going to focus on the secondary market. That is what we talked about in part 4. Well, now that we are in episode 12, we are going to dive deep into the new issue process. How do you buy it? What does it mean? You can see very quickly that even the yield is not there. All that you have is duration. The par value is not there. So there is a whole lot of unknowns there, and that is why it is an auction. And so this episode is going to be all about the auction process. So what is a treasury auction? Let's learn more. A treasury auction is a process by which people place bids on an unknown price and an unknown yield. All they know is the duration. That is one class of people. The second would place what is called a priced bid, and these all have fancy names, and I'm using simple terminology, and we'll come back and clean it all up. So there are people who just put their hat in the ring and say, I'll take whatever it is at the price that the rest of you decide is a good price. And then there is a second class of people who say, I'll take it, but only if you give it to me at this particular price or better. And then all of us wait. Tick tock, tick tock. The price gets fixed, the yield gets fixed, and the money walks out of our bank account. At the highest level, that is what an auction is. So let us actually go through an example, and we'll look at a sample auction in very simple terms. Just so you know, the first step before you can participate in an auction is to know when there is debt available for you to buy. You can go to treasurydirect.gov/auctions/upcoming. You can see today the list of all upcoming options, so you can decide whether you want to participate or not. That is the first step. The government says, here is how much debt we are buying. And you may hear these fancy words such as quantitative tightening, quantitative loosening. That means the government either is offering more debt or less debt, or so those are the things they tweak. But at the end of the day, you can look at the upcoming auction schedule in public domain. So now that you know what debt is available in public domain, you can then choose to participate in it. And before we go into the complicated auction schedule and participation, let us kind of bring it back into the simple world so you understand the concept better. The first step, we're going to pretend the government only offers $30,000 in debt. And that's just a simple example. The real answer is more in the billions by week. It is stunning to see the amounts. So if the government says, hey, next Tuesday, I'm going to buy $30,000, or sorry, the government sells the debt, you buy the debt. So the government says, I'm going to sell $30,000 in debt next Tuesday. You pay me back that debt a year later, and you tell me what you're willing to pay me. That is effectively what the government is saying. They are saying, I have this debt, I want to sell it, I want to sell it starting next Tuesday, and I need my money. I will repay the money that you lend me a year later. Remember the tomato farm. If the tomato farm is not familiar, you need to go back and refresh yourself. The government is the tomato farm. The government needs money. You are lending the tomato farm money, except you don't know yet exactly what the coupon is that you're going to get, and you're participating in an auction. And the government says $30,000 I would like to buy next Tuesday. Who wants to sell it to me? And people submit bids. In our simple story, we're going to pretend Jane, Mike, Carla, and Bob are willing to buy that. Here is the fun part. We're going to, for simplicity's sake, assume they're all willing to go on a par value of $100, and they have different quantities. And to make it more interesting, Jane wants 4.52%, or she's not in the game. Mike wants 4.51, and so on. And if you add the quantity, you're going to see, for example, $100 times 100 bonds is 10,000. Mike is willing to throw another 10,000 at it. Carla is willing to throw 50,000 at it, and Bob 5,000. So what you see here is that the supply, or the government, is only willing to borrow 30,000, but the demand, or people willing to lend it, is around 75,000. And so that is really what creates the auction, where the government gets to say, I only need 30,000. You folks are willing to give me 75,000. Let me see how I can pick and choose the best deal for me, the government. So the first thing the government is going to do is pick the cheapest debt. I don't blame them. You would do the same. So the government sorts all available offerings from these various bidders and says, well, Bob's 10,000 is at the cheapest amount, and then Mike, and then Jane, and finally Carla. And so the government is going to say, okay, well, they're willing to lend me that much, and I'm going to start creating my $30,000 basket in the order of lowest yield to highest. So let's start doing that exercise. So when the government is ready to accept, they are going to look at the very first offer and keep looking at the acceptance column. The very first the government would accept would be Bob. The government says, Bob, you only want 4.491%. I'll take it. I'll take your entire amount you're willing to give me. You gave me 5,000. I still need 25,000 more. Mike, yours is slightly higher, and so I'll take your 10,000. Now I'm up to 15. Jane, I'll take your 10,000. I'm up to 25. Carla, even though you were willing to give me 50,000, you want a lot for your 50,000. I'm only going to take 5,000 of your 50,000. There you go, kumbaya, I got my 30,000. Here is the problem. If you are Bob, what are you going to say? Hey, this is not fair. You took my 5,000 at 4.491%, but Carla got 4.531%. That's not nice. I want her deal. And so the government is happy it got the best and lowest yield, but the first three people are not happy, so we need a better solution. What is the better solution? So the government, in one way, and this is not the final answer, the government says, okay, here's what we're going to do. We are going to start accepting, this is the same as before with one small change. We're going to accept 5,000 from Bob, that was at 4.49. 10,000 from Mike and Jane at 4.51, 4.52, because we took something at all from Carla and we were willing to pay 4.531 to Carla, we're going to go back and pay everybody 4.531%. This way, Bob, Mike, and Jane say, well, thank you, government. I would have accepted a lower amount, but you gave Carla a higher amount, so you were very nice to give me the same number. Carla says, well, I wanted 4.53. You gave me 4.53. I'm cool. The government sits there and says, boy, just because I wanted that last 5,000, I ended up having to pay 4.531 to everybody. I wish there was a better way. And so the government says, I have an idea. Let me call Sabrina to the party. Sabrina is a conflict avoider. She's a peacemaker. She's a yogi. So Sabrina is going to chill on the sideline, and Sabrina says, I don't want to fight. I'm just going to sit on the sideline, and government, you go do the auction. Whatever is the winning rate, I am willing to give you $5,000 at the winning rate. How do you like, Sabrina? Sabrina says, I don't want to be in that rat race. If the winning rate is only 4.491, no problem, I'll give you 5,000 at 4.491. If the winning rate is 4.53, I'll give you 5,000 at 4.53. Either way, I don't want to get into the ring and fight with these people. That's just not my personality. Well, my question to you, if you are the government, what would you do? Here is the fun part, and this is what happens today in a treasury auction many times a week, many times a day for various durations. The government says, Sabrina, you keep meditating. Let me figure this out. I'll come back to you. But I have news for you. I love you because you don't want to fight with the rest of them. You don't want to argue. You trust me to pick the winning rate and you're willing to give me 5,000. I'm going to guarantee that I will take your 5,000 and just hang tight. I'll come back to you with the winning rate. And the government then says, the first dollar I'm going to accept is Sabrina's 5,000 bucks. Well, I need 30,000, so I still need 25,000. Let me see what I can do. Bob, come on up to the front of the line. You gave the lowest yield quote, so I'm going to take money from you. I'm at 4.491. I raised another 5,000. Mike, I suppose I have to go up a little more to 4.51. Now I'm at 5,000 from Sabrina, 5 from Bob, that's 10. 10 from Mike, I'm at 20. I still need 10,000. Jane is the next one on the line. Jane gives me 10,000. Wait a second, I have reached 30,000. So I'm going to make a quick call to Carla and say, Carla, remember how you wanted 4.53? I'm not going to take your money because I met my 30K by working with nice people like Sabrina who are willing to trust me. And I went up as high as I needed to go up, but to make everybody happy, so Bob doesn't get upset and Mike doesn't get upset, I'm going to give all of them 4.52%. Let me review that one more time. Sabrina, who gave the non-competitive passive bid, is the one that the government accepts first. Whatever is the balance, then the government goes out to bid with the rest of the competitive people and says, I'm going to take you at the lowest yield first until I reach my goal. When I reach my goal, whatever is the highest amount, I will pay everybody. That is the process that happens today. Let's review a couple of buzzwords. Sabrina is the person who doesn't compete. She's called a non-competitive bidder. Everybody else who say, I'll only take it but at a specific price, they are competitive bidders. You may lose. You may be the Carla in this example. You may not get anything. The government may have fulfilled their debt obligations, their debt raise by going to others. The most predictable approach, because you're guaranteed to win, is the non-competitive bidder. But there are a few big dogs, and these are big dogs such as the ones you will find in the New York Fed. If you Google primary dealers, you will find them in your areas. They are the competitive bidders, and they guarantee that whatever the government wants, they'll pick up X% of it. And so they are always invited to the party. They are asked to tell the government where is the market headed. They're given special privileges because they guarantee purchase of a certain amount. Now we're going to start talking about what is the right approach. Should you be a competitive bidder? Should you be a non-competitive bidder? For that, we're going to go to the next part. Thank you. Thank you for listening to Yield Nerd, a do-it-yourself show for yield accumulation and management.